an intent endoskeleton. The excuse we get in the original FNAF game as to why the animatronics are attacking us is because we look like a naked endoskeleton and they want to put us in a suit because it's against company policy. First of all, why would you program animatronics in a pizzeria to try and enforce company policy, especially at night? And why would they directly come after us if that's the excuse? Like, why would they come all the way to the security room? But the main issue is, why aren't they attacking the naked endoskeleton, sometimes visible in the storage room? Bonnie will sometimes even go into the storeroom while the endoskeleton is in there, but nothing. Why is it that it will attack us, but not it? It's also violating company policy, isn't it? I mean, maybe because it's in the storage room it's fine, but then again, why wouldn't we make our way there because it would be safe, and why wouldn't they tell us about that? The explanation we came up with is because we look like William Afton since we think we play as Michael. But if we go off my theory that we play as Henry since Michael may not have been old enough, that doesn't make sense. Plus, even if it's because we look like William, that doesn't explain. And at number 9, why Phone Guy? If the animatronics are really after us because we look like the man who killed them, why do they attack Phone Guy? And why do they kill him on night 4? This is what originally made us think that Purple Guy was the Phone Guy, since this seems to mimic what we see in the FNAF 3 minigames where we see William get spring locked. But Scott confirmed that that wasn't true in the Ultimate Custom Night April Fool's update, so why did they attack Phone Guy? Is Phone Guy actually Michael Afton and he doesn't actually die? Or do the animatronics get some form of code update before we become the night guard so they aren't attacking because we look like an endoskeleton in an effort to avoid what happened to Phone Guy happening again? Because a lot of good that did. You went and hired someone who looked exactly like their killer. Smooth move, bro. And at 8, how did Baby get ejected? So we know that between the events of Sister Location and FNAF 6 that Baby and the rest of Ennard get into a lover's spat and then Baby gets kicked out of Ennard. But like, how does that work, really? They were all tangled together, right? So did they just remove the parts that were Baby and then kick her to the curb? Or did they just remove her soul and place it into another endoskeleton? If they did that, how did that work? Like, how did the actual process of ejecting work? It's really confusing to me because she ends up getting a whole new body and Molten Freddy is left as basically a puddle of parts. But then he grabs a Freddy face and calls it okay. Like, what the hell happened for that to work? It's so confusing and it's unexplained, it's mysterious. I know that they had a fight and I know that she got kicked out, but how did they actually physically remove her from the Ennard tribe, I guess? Scott, explain! What do you mean it's Arkansas? And at 7, Lorekeeper ending. I talked about the FNAF 2 minigames in another video or list, but what I'm really wondering now is about the FNAF 6 minigames, Fruity Maze, Security Puppet, and Midnight Motorist. These games, while not a big part of the game, are required to be beaten for the Lorekeeper ending, meaning that they would have lore significance. I mean, they obviously do, because we learn a lot from them, but how and why are these secrets hidden inside? The Fruity Maze ends up gory and trailing blood, with William Afton and presumably Susie in the reflection. But like, how can we see the reflection if we're the ones playing? Security Puppet recounts the origin of the puppet and how Henry's daughter Charlotte died. And Midnight Motorist recounts later that night, after William had killed Charlotte and returns home. But how did these little secrets get put into the game? Was it Henry? Was it someone who knew the story of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza? Are these the games that were made by a rogue indie game developer? And are these games even real? Or are these sections just hallucinations or memories and they don't actually exist within the game? Are we just having flashbacks or is this all real time? I don't know. And genuinely, it scares me. And at 6, why is Purple Guy smiling? The Foxy Go 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 minigame was another piece of evidence for the Phone Guy is Purple Guy theory, since Phone Guy loves Foxy, and in this game we can see Foxy run out to a group of dead kids where Purple Guy is smiling beforehand. But since we know Purple Guy isn't the Phone Guy, why is he smiling? Is it a coincidence and he likes Foxy too? Like, Scott wouldn't do that, right? Or is it just that William is pleased with watching Foxy find another set of missing kids? There is no clear-cut answer anymore, and that's just honestly concerning. Like, there has to be a reason, right? Or is this just so old now that we can or have to ignore it? Since Scott knows the story he wants to tell now, like Matt Pett said in his video about the full timeline. Or is this still of significance that we need to keep in mind when looking at everything in the future? Is it because Foxy was the last of the 5 missing kids to die, so William had developed a style and had gotten comfortable at that point, so he was proud of it? Were those 5 kids killed in the same way that Fritz, the spirit that possesses Foxy, was? I don't know. Halfway through number 5, where's the puppet? The animatronic known as Lefty was designed as a mechanism to capture the puppet, and does so prior to its appearance in FNAF 6. However, when Lefty jump scares you in both FNAF 6 and Ultimate Custom Night, we can't seem to see the rest of the puppet inside Lefty other than the arms. Realistically, the puppet's face should be in Lefty's head, but it's not. In fact, Lefty has something blocking the bottom of its head, like, the rest of its skull, making it separate and a sealed piece. So what the hell? Where did the rest of the puppet go? Is it inside the body compressed? Because the proportions, if it's not compressed, are all wrong, unless it got damaged in the FNAF 3 fire, which caused it to shrivel, since we know that the puppet was there. Which would have been a terrifying animatronic, so it sucks that we didn't get to see that. But still, I doubt Henry would have let his daughter's vessel get compressed inside of Lefty. So what the hell is going on here, and where's the rest of the puppet? And then 4, what brought him back? We all know that William makes his way to the FNAF 6 location first out of all the animatronics, but how? It's not like he got an email saying, hey my old pal William, how about you come to this new Fazbear location that your kid opened? It's gonna have plenty of potential victims. And he didn't get a flyer sent to him, so how was he called back to this location? How were any of them called back, really? I know that he could have brought Lefty back because he had programmed her, but what made William, Molten Freddy, and Baby come back? Was it similar to the green bracelet for the puppet? Or was it playing those sounds like in FNAF 3 or in the vents in this game? How close did they have to be for them to hear it? Is it some sort of circuit thing that he could activate inside the animatronics with a remote? We don't know, and I really want to. Getting close to the end into number 3, investigation. I talked about the police and how nobody seemed to bat an eye in a previous part, but I want to be more specific and find the real reason the police didn't investigate more. We know they did investigate thanks to the phone guy calls and Juniors from Midnight Motorist, but why didn't they investigate the smelly, oozing animatronics? The bodies were in there and they would know to investigate, especially when the place got shut down because the animatronics started oozing and leaking mucus and blood. Blood! How do you not look into that? Are you telling me there wasn't one single cop who didn't find that suspicious? There is no way the cops would have put 5 missing children's cases to bed that quickly. Yeah, the first 48 hours of a murder investigation are the most crucial. Same thing with missing persons, but they don't usually give up after those 2 days. It's so weird, and it makes me think that William had to have someone in his pocket. That's the only really questionable thing that I'm really stuck on. Like, why didn't they check the bloody suits? It makes 0 sense from any perspective. And at 2, in-universe games. Thanks to Help Wanted, we learned about a series of games that were made by an in-universe version of Scott Cawthon. This guy supposedly made the games out of the situation and ruined the reputation of the company. However, we then hear Tape Girl say that Fazbear Entertainment paid Scott to make these games. But we've heard so much about these games, but don't know what these games are. Some people think that it's the FNAF 2 minigames. Others think the FNAF 6 minigames. There is a possibility that Security Breach is one of them, or FNAF AR, but we don't have a serious answer. Nothing is confirmed, and it's a big issue. Also, I know that it's not actually Scott, but he doesn't have a name yet, so I'm just gonna call him Scott. He used his own picture, it's what he gets. What do you think the in-universe games are? Do you think that we've seen them, or do you think we have yet to find one in-game? Let me know below, because I'm very confused and might need some help. Finally, in at number 1, Glitch Trap. Glitch Trap is the main antagonist of Help Wanted, and is William Afton's consciousness in the form of computer code, thanks to his agony allowing him to possess a hard drive at the end of the Man in Room 1280 from the Fazbear Frights book in the flesh, that then gets scanned to help make the AI in Help Wanted. But he was never meant to be in the game. However, for someone who was never meant to be in the game, he has a huge impact on the final minigame. He doesn't make any appearances in other games, but he shows up in Pizza Party at the final scene, and is present while we were all inside the Fazbear costume. He dances on the floor in front of us while we're stuck singing a song, but how is he able to do that? How does he open the curtain? How does he put us in the suit and then dance around happy that he did it? He wasn't meant to exist, so how can he interact with a virtual world? We can't even move the curtain if we manage to break the boundaries and touch it, so if our hands pass through it, why don't his? We were meant to be in the game. He wasn't. And how is he able to make a whole stage for himself when he attacks us? It doesn't make any sense, unless he was meant to exist in the first place. And at 10, the power of love. The immense agony generated when you hear me sing. The immense agony generated when you get killed is the fuel behind how possession works in the FNAF universe. This makes you think, if agony is the most powerful emotion in this world, what do the other emotions do? Or rather, where are the other emotions ranked? If agony lets you possess animatronics among other things upon death, what would emotions like anger and love do? And what is the second most powerful emotion? How far does it radiate? Do all emotions just allow you to possess things? Just other emotions are less likely to do so? Like, how does it work? I want to shout out the YouTube user that left the comments on this video that brought this to my attention, but I can't find that comment for a second time. So, I don't know if it was deleted, but if this was you who left the comment on the previous Tiny Details video, thank you so much. These things are getting really hard because I'm running out of details and I'm relying so much more on the comments section. So if you have any tiny details I have yet to talk about, please, I cannot stress this enough, leave it below. It doesn't even have to have like bigger implications. Okay, just something that's small. Just please. Thank you for your help. And a 9 hiding place. Throughout Sister Location, we're constantly being talked to by Baby. At first, she wants to help us, at least it seems that way, and then we get scooped. But before that, she mentions that someone crafted one of the cupboards into a hiding place, but who did that? Was it one of the technicians? Was it the man from the Fazbear Frights book? I mean, I don't think it would have been because he kind of got stuffed with mini arenas. And I mean, the technicians are killed at the end of the game, but were they freshly filleted or were they there the whole time, only being revealed when a light was shining on them? Who knows, really? Maybe it was Baby who made that hole so we would trust her, or maybe it was William hiding from the wrath of his daughter. I mean, she had to be mad at him, right? Why else would she be haunting him in Ultimate Custom Night? Sure, he regrets what happened, but she surely blames him for the situation that she's kind of stuck in. She was clearly in agony since, you know, she possessed Baby, and William was 100% avoiding her. I mean, you don't just get shut in a room and not be avoiding your daughter, right? Parents know. And today's Shadow Animatronics. The Shadow Animatronics really don't have an explanation, even after all these years. We still just have a couple of ideas as to what these are. Some think that Crying Child is Shadow Freddy, others think that they're employees that ended up getting killed, either by the animatronics, William, or the spring-lock suits. Since the two Shadow Animatronics are Freddy and Bonnie, who we know have spring-lock variants in the games thanks to the phone guy dialogue. But where did these Shadow Animatronics come from and where did they go? Cotton Eye Joe. Did we release them? Are they still after us? Were they ever really hostile? The whole Shadow Animatronic situation was kind of forgotten over the years, and while it may not be an important detail, it's still something I'm curious about and I still want to answer. It's an adapted virus. We know that William is a virus at the moment. After dying in the man in room 1280, he possesses a hard drive that gets scanned into FNAF VR Help Wanted. We also know the virus gets uploaded to Special Delivery thanks to the Special Delivery emails and the aggressive nature of what was supposed to be nice animatronics. However, why did the virus get uploaded? Who uploaded it? Well, thanks to the emails we aren't supposed to see, we learned that Vanny, the antagonist of the upcoming Security Breach game, is the one who's uploaded the virus, and I mean it makes sense. She's a follower of Afton, even if it's reluctant. However, with the various versions of Springtrap in the game, could this virus be to blame for them? Especially Toxic Springtrap, who is the signature purple of the infamous purple guy who occupies the suit. Was Toxic Springtrap the original attempt to escape the video game world? I mean, the AR game is the closest we've gotten to having FNAF animatronics in real life, and Scott isn't one to be afraid of being meta. I mean, he was the final boss of FNAF World after all. So could William's real plan be to escape into our world? And would that tie in with the new Joy of Creation Ignited collection that Scott is helping to fund? Since in that game you play as Scott Cawthon and the animatronics are coming after you in the real world. I don't know, it seems possible. And at 6, below our glasses. In the Fazbear Fright story of Room for One More, we see a girl steal a pair of glasses that show her a dancing Ballora when she puts them on. It starts off sweet, but as we know, these animatronics don't mess around. Eventually, Ballora starts getting closer, basically just coming in for a kill, and in an effort to atone, the girl returns the glasses to their owner, only to have her daughter get caught by Ballora. The actual story, though, isn't important, so if I messed it up, please forgive me. What I'm really looking at here are the glasses. These glasses help this girl see Ballora when nobody else can. And this reminds me of something that we've experienced in the games, the Nightmare animatronics. Could it be that instead of the illusion sound discs that we've been thinking caused the Nightmare animatronics, that it was actually these glasses? And yes, I said nightmare sound discs intentionally because I saw a comment that said please say just illusion discs. So no, illusion sound discs. You can't tell me what to do. Scott himself said that these stories would help us solve things from the games. So what if Crying Child was wearing these glasses and that's how he saw the nightmares? It would explain why he wouldn't call for help, because he knew that nobody else could see them, and I doubt that they would have put on the glasses if he had asked. Plus, it would also explain why Michael knows what the nightmare animatronics look like as an alternate explanation to my he's a robot crying child theory, which I'm sure plenty of you want at this point. Halfway through and in number 5, disassembled. In FNAF 1, we only had 5 animatronics to worry about, and no convoluted story. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy was our cast of characters, compared to the over 50 that appear in Ultimate Custom Night. However, even out of all 50 plus, Golden Freddy is still the most interesting and mysterious. In the first game, he had no endoskeleton. He seemed to just be a floppy suit with 2 glowing eyes that somehow was able to teleport through walls, and some believed to be able to cause hallucinations like the infamous "It's me" text and eyeless Bonnie, along with changing posters on the wall and generating news articles that show us more lore. But how? And why? Why is he so limp? The amount of jokes I could make for that. Is his endoskeleton the one in the storage room? And why was it removed in the first place? Was it for cleaning or something? Because let's be honest, if the animatronics are leaking mucus and blood and smell like death and don't get washed, I doubt that they'll be cleaning Golden Freddy. Some think that it's because he caused the bite of 87, but there is evidence for other characters as well, and nothing has been confirmed. So, why? And in 4, glitch. Continuing on Golden Freddy, how does he have these powers? How can he move in and out of the office at will, basically moving through walls and causing weird hallucinations that give us issues for 7 years? Yet we still don't know how it's possible. This should, in reality, be incredibly hard to do, if not impossible, because even in the FNAF world, this kind of thing is hard. Is this what the other emotions can do, or is this agony stretching so far that they can move through solid objects and hide from our vision? Why have we not tried to figure this out? We kind of just accepted that he can do this, and then we moved on. Like, what the actual hell is this little freaking goddamn golden bear? Is he a bear? Yeah, he's a bear. Like, he can just come in and out whenever he wants, crash us to the desktop, and then laugh as we have to reboot it like he just loaded Skyrim for the 40,000th time without mods. Like, where did this man come from? And at 3, hallucinations. The hallucinations from FNAF 1 are their own story too. Where did they come from? Is it Golden Freddy? If it is, why do we need to see them, or why do we see them in the first place? Are they actual newspaper articles, or are we just fully hallucinating? Is this real life, or is this just a fantasy? Caught in a landslide, escape Golden Freddy. But seriously, why are we seeing these things other than it being important to the mystery of the game? Is there something more going on here that we haven't discovered yet? Is Golden Freddy the one changing these articles and posters, or are we somehow doing it ourselves? These hallucinations, or whatever they are, have some sort of explanation behind them. I just need to know what that explanation is. In a 2, Scene in the Shadows. During MatPat's Big FNAF livestream during the FNAF 4 days, he ended up getting clues from Scott Cawthon himself via the Scott Games or FNAF World website, I can't remember which one. One referencing Chica's beak, one talking about 4 games, 1 story, and then one saying what is seen in shadows is often misunderstood in the mind of a child. And since Scott has since debunked Dream Theory, what did this mean? Did he originally intend on Dream Theory being the correct answer, then changed his mind? Because, you know, that's pretty Scott. Or is there still some validity to this clue that we haven't explored yet? I mean, we originally assumed it was the scene where Purple Guy puts a head on a coworker in a suit, but is this referencing something else now? Did Crying Child see Elizabeth get scooped in the shadows, making it really look like there was a stomach mouth and some weird alien tongue that grabbed her? Hence the stomach mouths on the nightmare animatronics? Or did he just see it directly and that's why they're there, and this is referencing something completely different? I mean, it would make sense, but Sister Location hadn't come out yet, right? I don't know anymore. My brain hurts. Finally, in number 1, Henry's death. There are currently 2 deaths that we know of for the character we know as Henry. One's in the FNAF 6 fire, where he stays while it burns so nobody will remember this place, but also once in FNAF World, where he gets killed by Baby. However, if he died in the FNAF 6 fire along with Baby, how did he die in the FNAF World cutscene? There seems to be a simple explanation. Actually, they are the same thing. That room that Henry was in that cutscene must have been a room in the FNAF 6 building that we just didn't know about. Maybe the safe room that we heard so much about until FNAF 3 when we just forgot about it. That scene was basically a flash forward to the FNAF 6 location, even if we didn't know it at the time, where Baby kills Henry before they're both engulfed in flames. She either killed him due to rage or the fact that Henry called her Elizabeth. Or cut her off in the ending, because yeah, that would make me go nuts too.
And be full.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed.
In its 10 animatronic bite, we all know the story of FNAF 4's 8-bit minigames and cutscenes, where Crying Child ends up getting chomped in the mouth of the Fredbear animatronic thanks to his older brother and his friends putting him in there. I proposed a different idea that not many people seem to appreciate, but thanks to the comments of one Thanos Snap on a previous part, it helped me realize, how did Fredbear manage to crush Crying Child's skull enough to put him in a coma? We originally believed that it was due to a spring lock failure since we saw someone wearing the suit in a previous part, but what we forgot about is that while on stage, Fredbear isn't in suit mode, it's an animatronic, so the spring locks were already all in place, and there wouldn't be any way that it should be able to crush his skull, and the chomping force of the mouth is going to have to be way over regulation to be able to cause the amount of damage we see, and if the suit was capable of that, nobody would wear it. There is no feasible explanation that allows what we see on screen to be the actual scenario where Crying Child dies, so how did this actually happen? And does this go to only further enhance my explanation of this scene? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and maybe we can work this out together. And the 9 Paper Pals. The Paper Pals are a group of paper plate versions of our favorite animatronics. Well, a couple of them. In FNAF 2, we can see paper plate versions of Bonnie, Freddy, and a human-looking one that might possibly be Balloon Boy. And while these may be crafts made by kids at the restaurant, or they might sell kits for you to be able to make these at home, where did the originals come from and how can they move? In FNAF 2, the human-like Paper Pal can actually move from Cam 4, where it's originally found, into the office. And in FNAF 3, the 3 Paper Pals can do the same thing, using this teleporting mechanic seemingly at random. How can they do this? How can paper cutouts teleport between rooms? Is it a hallucination or something else? I don't know, and it terrifies me. Imagine all the paper cuts this thing would give if it jump scared you. Ow. Tail Trap. This was mentioned in the comments of one of the Funtime Foxy facts lists by a user that I could not find the comment of twice, so I apologize. I really need to take note of this stuff. Anyway, the comment suggested that Funtime Foxy's tail could be where its containment chamber for the kids is collected. You know, like the containment chamber for the kids would be in its tail, which is an interesting idea, and it would give a reason as to why Foxy all of a sudden got a tail in sister location, but the beginning of the tail is so small that it would have to really squish the kid down to the size of like a Toblerone bar before actually getting to the wider part, so it's unlikely, but still something to think about. And it's 7 Charlie. The original FNAF novel trilogy had a big plot twist at the end. In the FNAF novel The Fourth Closet, it's revealed that the main protagonist, Charlie, was actually the third in a series of 4 robots that were a recreation of Henry's daughter, who was killed at an early point in her life. However, the final version was incomplete and could also switch between looking like a real human, so much so that another character wanted to make Whoopi with them, to looking like Baby, you know, like the actual Baby animatronic, thanks to pins located around Baby's body like we see in the games. I've used this as evidence for another theory before, but we've never stopped to really ask how she's able to look so realistic. And it's a big point, because this is the same argument people use to try and debunk my theory. How does the skin work? In the novels, it's revealed that she actually has fake blood, which makes sense since, you know, if you get cut and you don't bleed, someone's gonna get suspicious. I hope. Which means the skin should be able to bruise. But where did this technology come from? It's so realistic, someone wants to see all of it, yet it's still fake. How is this possible? But more so, it also helps in my theory proving that my scenario is entirely plausible. I'm not moving from my stance that Michael Afton or the Big Brother in the games is a robot version of Crying Child created after Crying Child dies. In whatever happened, because obviously what we see isn't actually what happened. Because like, there's no way Fredbear chopped it. And it's 6 Fourth Child. A lot of people seem to fixate on Clara from Sister Location's Immortal and the Restless for a proxy for Mrs. Afton, the mother of the Afton kids, since she talks to a vampire meant to represent William, whose name is Vlad. However, the theme of the show is Vlad constantly denying that the baby is his. Clara, the baby isn't mine, even though the baby can turn into a bat and sleeps hanging upside down. But what if there's more to that than just being a proxy for William's wife? Because I doubt Clara would be the name of the character and the name of the mother if William's character is named Vlad. What if this is secretly revealing that William has a fourth child? One that hasn't met a terrible fate yet. One that perhaps William didn't believe was his when his wife told him. So much so that he divorced her on the grounds that she cheated and he got the kids. A simple paternity test would reveal that he is the father, but he could claim that they were faked, like how Vlad denies the child being his, even though it's literally a vampire. And William is well connected, so bringing a trial would be easy cheese. He has to be well connected to not have been actually thrown in prison. There has to be something going on. Now, who could this secret child be? This may be a stretch, but what about Gregory? Unless we go off my theory that in FNAF 1 and 2 we play as Henry, we've only played as characters of the Afton family until FNAF VR potentially. So what if the fourth child is the one we play as in Security Breach, and that's why Vanny is trying to capture him? Or more realistically, what if Vanessa is the child, and that's how William was able to take control of their mind? They're related. Only time will tell. How about we do it at number 5, Premonition? Now, I'm not talking about real psychic powers here, but what if the ending of Security Breach was pointed out to us way before even Sister Location was released? That's right, I'm talking about FNAF 4, baby! The stomach mounts of the animatronics is always assumed to be because Crying Child saw Elizabeth get scooped. But what if it was really foreshadowing the events of games to come? We know that Gregory will hide inside Glamrock Freddy. Perhaps while we're in there in first person, we will watch ourselves get crushed, helpless. That would be fun. However, I want Chica to be the one to step on me. I mean, crush me. Yeah. Crush me. And then for Gregory. Continuing on Security Breach, what connection does Gregory have with anyone else in this game? I mean, he could be the fourth child. It's unlikely, but possible in a way. But how on earth does he have a watch that connects to the security cameras of the place? Does he get it in the security room? And who would leave a piece of tech that would be so useful to anyone they're trying to stop out in the open? Right for the taking. Was it Vanessa? Does she know she's compromised? I mean, she does in Special Delivery, but is Ness the Vanessa we're thinking of? Or is it just a name meant to confuse us? Because Scott's done that before. I don't know anymore. I'm sad. Take the multiple uses of the name Jeremy. What is that, dude? And 3, Special Delivery. The animatronics from Special Delivery were supposed to be friendly, basically being a nice way for the company to rebuild their image. But then, they send out angry animatronics that try and kill you. Why did they think that was a good idea? And I get that they were hacked by the Afton virus, but there's plenty of sus things going on in this game. Like, why, if the company was trying to rebuild its reputation with these friendly animatronics, have they not shut down the project after I'm sure they've gotten emails and stuff about the animatronics going rogue? And why the absolute hell did they include versions of Springtrap, a character that we know thanks to the man in room 1280, everyone knows is guilty. They have multiple versions of him as well, the normal one, the toxic one, and the curse, which is a recent addition as far as I know. They literally named him the Curse. It's... what? Just remove him from the program. Why would I want to order a literal killer? Is this the same thing as when girls say that serial killers are hot? Because that's also messed up. How am I supposed to compete with that? Actually, there is a solution. I'll be back. And it too, just an illusion. FNAF Sister Location is probably one of the most popular FNAF games to date, with plenty of fan favorites like Funtime Freddy, Foxy, and Baby being added, as well as the new fan art favorite Ballora. However, is what you see really what you get in this particular FNAF game? Well, it's a good question, and you may be thinking, Connor, of course it is. What are you talking about? You're dumb. And if you are saying that, I'd like to direct you to when we have to repair Funtime Freddy in Sister Location. As we open up his chest cavity, we can see a weird disc, something that's being described in the books as being able to create illusions using sound. And it seems to be flashing red. They call it a power module, but there is no way that that little disc is a power module. And if it's one of those discs, could it be changing the look of everything? Hell, this could have taken place in the basement of a goddamn shack, and we wouldn't know. It's pretty scary to think about. Finally, in at number 1, Mrs. Afton. We don't know the identity of Mrs. Afton. We don't even know if there is a Mrs. Afton, or if she was just a baby mama, or hell, if William's kids are just adopted. Most people draw a connection between Mrs. Afton and Clara from Memorial and the Restless, so much so that people believe Mrs. Afton's name is Clara. However, I propose the idea that could explain what happened to Mrs. Afton, and it makes a great amount of sense. The Fazbear Frights books were meant to help explain bits of the in-game lore, along with making Scott more money. Take the book Bunny Call with the story The Man in Room 1280, which which I keep going back to. But this time, I'm talking about the story 1:35 AM from the book of the same name. This story revolves around Delia, who has recently gotten divorced from her husband, heartbroken because she never got the family that she wanted. She comes across a garage sale that has a doll that looked exactly like the daughter she had envisioned. She buys it and finds out that it's an alarm clock. Then, much like an actual baby, instead of waking her up when she wanted, she ends up getting woken up at 1:35 AM every morning. It gets so bad she runs away and hides in a factory ventilation shaft where she waits until she dies or suffocates. That's a really brief synopsis, but let's look at the parallels between Delia and Mrs. Afton as well as Delia's story. Delia's parents died when she was young, so she was put into the foster care system where she was bounced around from family to family, but also was continuously abused. Eventually, she fell in love and was ready to start a family until her husband divorced her, which could be the case between William and his partner. We have no evidence as to what happened between them, so we can only speculate. Delia never managed to get the kids she wanted, and Mrs. Afton, assuming she was still alive, didn't get the kids in any form of divorce or court hearing, since we see the three of them living with William in FNAF 4 and Midnight Motorist. And then the surrogate daughter for Delia is a possessed doll. We learn she is possessed in another story where Phineas Taggart needs it to study agony, much like how William's daughter Elizabeth ends up possessing basically a giant robotic doll. The connection is somewhat loose, yes, but certainly more solid than Clara, since she was just talking to a purple-suited vampire about having this kid, and Vlad was denying it, despite it clearly being his, but still. Perhaps both of these stories combine together to create the story of Mrs. Afton. Not to mention the next story in that book is about the mini-Renas, who are meant to be Bellora's surrogate children. And who do people think that Bellora either represents or is possessed by? Mrs. Afton. They're an intent corruption. It took me a while to realize, but the FNAF series is all about corruption, at least in a metaphorical sense. Sure, the story is about kids getting murdered and possessing animal-themed robots, but a huge theme of the series is corruption. William was corrupted into killing, those kids were corrupted by William, the animatronics that got possessed were corrupted, the restaurant was corrupted, and corruption is an even more prevalent theme now, and it's literally occurring. With William literally corrupting a hard drive that gets scanned into FNAF VR, which he then corrupts, because he corrupts the game. William corrupts Jeremy and gets him to off himself. He corrupts Tape Girl and Vanny. He corrupts animatronics and Security Breach and Special Delivery. Each of his children get corrupted and killed. It's a main theme of the series, and William can't die until the corruption stops. I just thought that was kind of cool. It's present literally everywhere. And at 9 spring locks. A lot of people didn't understand what I was talking about when I was saying that Crying Child's death makes no sense, so I'm going in depth here so I can explain how the spring lock mechanics work in universe and how this applies to Crying Child's death scene. The term spring lock in and of itself is kind of confusing, since it can be used to refer to multiple things. A spring lock can talk about an animatronic that can switch between suit and robot modes, like Golden Bonnie that William uses to kill the original 5, and the Golden Freddy we see in FNAF 4's cutscenes. We know it can be a suit because we see William putting someone into it in one of the mini-games in the back room. And spring lock is also a term for the mechanism used to hold back robotic parts in those specific suits so a person can fit inside. We know these can fail when exposed to water, since this is how William got stuck in the Springtrap suit in FNAF 3's minigames. So most people assume that Crying Child's tears loosen the locks of the mouth, and that's why he gets chomped. But that was already in animatronic mode, so the spring locks weren't active. And they couldn't fail because they aren't in use. And there wouldn't need to be any in the mouth to begin with, only the pistons used to move the jaw up and down since no human body part is in the mouth. And if we're wrong and this is just an animatronic without suit capabilities, there would be no spring locks in the suit at all. Now a human skull would require 1900 newtons of force to be crushed, something way beyond what should be used for an animatronic. And even to fracture it, it would require around 1100 newtons, something that would require a piston that uses its own air compressor, and you would need multiple of them, since that's something we don't see on stage with Freddy, and it would be something that would be impossible to fit inside of him, because air compressors are huge even with our current technology. That's why Crying Child's death scene is impossible. There is no physical way the animatronic could have crushed his skull, unless there's something going on that we don't know about, which is entirely possible, but highly unlikely. And at 8, paper shadows. Shout out to YouTube user XXShadowFredbearXX-0- for pointing this one out to me, because it actually is really interesting and it's a detail I never noticed. If you have a small detail that I have yet to cover, please let me know in the comments. The comments are really helping me get through these videos, especially this one. So go shoot your shot, and if you do, you might just get a shout out if I use your point. Anyway, Shadow Fredbear pointed out that the Paper Pals, characters I talked about in the previous part, who could seemingly move around at will, are the characters that have shadow counterparts. I described the Paper Pals as Bonnie, Freddy, and a humanoid that could possibly be Balloon Boy. However, the human-like character who has a shadow counterpart is Dee Dee, someone based off the looks of Balloon Boy. The other animatronics, Bonnie and Freddy, each have shadow versions as well that were introduced in FNAF 2. What could this mean exactly? Unknown. I need to kind of work on it. This is something very interesting and I'd like to get to the bottom of it. Unit 7, time travel. So, time travel is possible in the FNAF canon, and at least in the Fazbear Frights book series. Since the first book, Into the Pit, has a story talking about someone getting into a ball pit and time traveling, hot tub time machine style. But like, does that mean anyone can have this happen to them? Like, is it possible that anyone from the games could have this happen to them? Perhaps Gregory is Crying Child who fell into a pit and got sucked into the events of security breach, and then we'll go back in time at the end of the game, or well, I guess go back to his time at the end of the game, showing why he fears the animatronics and being in a pizzeria. Maybe William can time travel through the games and this is him in the far future. There are so many possibilities. Like, maybe this is why the timeline doesn't make any sense, because someone keeps changing it. I solved FNAF. It has its own Barry Allen. Unit 6, upgrades. How on earth is this franchise able to upgrade its location constantly? You'd think that after multiple deaths of the joint's prime clientele, that the place would be ruined, right? But then these folks come in hitting us with that Freddy Fazbear Mega Pizzaplex. How do they have the money to open a whole, basically, mall after so many kids have gone missing in their establishments? Why do parents let their kids go here? It can't be that they think that it's fake, right? I mean, like, who would believe... Oh wait, I know who would believe that it's fake. The same people that believe that 5 kids actually went missing in a Chuck E. Cheese instead of realizing that it's just a Twitter picture and like a meme. Like, it's funny because it's backwards in this like analogy. I'm sure they wouldn't believe if it actually happened and only believe that it happened here because of the games. Like, but I mean, who knows? Clearly not them. It just doesn't make sense to me. How is this good publicity? Like, even if you go by any publicity as good publicity, this isn't it. It makes no sense, especially in this scenario. Halfway through into number 5, Purple Guy. The FNAF community was up in arms over the true Purple Guy debate after the release of Sister Location and the discovery of the ending. In this ending, we have an end cutscene of Michael walking around after being scooped by Ennard, but then also turning more and more purple as he walked down the street after multiple days, making us question if he was really the infamous Purple Guy. He isn't, since the Purple Guy isn't physically purple, but this begs the question, why was Michael purple? Most assume that he was in fact a decaying corpse that smells bad, hence the reason for being fired in the original games, but that never made sense to me, since in every form of media, decaying or decayed bodies that aren't supposed to look realistic are shown as green and not purple, because like that would make more sense, at least in my brain it does. However, do you know what is purple? Bruises. We know he isn't dead, so why would his body be rotting? Because it's not. It's being battered from the inside, causing extreme bruising, hence why everyone is scared. They don't understand why this dude is like literally purple, and it's because of all the bruises. And at 4, why Henry? In the original FNAF novel series, to my knowledge, the characters of William and Henry are introduced as business partners. William is the businessman who handles the financial and actual business side of the company, while Henry is the creative one who really works on the animatronics. This could be wrong, but this is how I've been explained and understand their roles. And the characters in the games at least have a similar role layout, with Henry making loads of new animatronics for FNAF 6. But we also know that William was the one who modified the animatronics, or corrupted them, see, full circle, and was the one who built the Sister Location animatronics and had a robot business called Afton Robotics. So my thought is, if William was already capable of creating these things and this entire company from scratch, since we know that Circus Baby's Pizza World opened after Freddy's, why did William involve Henry at all? Like, wouldn't it just be a liability? Having someone work so closely with the things you intend on using to kill with? Like, it seems stupid to me. Some say that a criminal career starts with too much caution or too much arrogance, but to me, this doesn't seem like either. Maybe too much arrogance, but he had already started killing at this point, so like, what the hell, dude? Was it to keep him close because he wanted to kill his daughter, or was his daughter actually yours. And 3 genes. A lot of people seem to be confused by the genetics of the Afton family, and I've talked about it before, but I'll go over it again for everyone that's new here. Also, hi, thanks for subscribing. We're almost at 500K. That's insane. With genetics, what you see is not all that you get. For example, my sister and I both have dark hair. However, when mine is shorter, and even more so when I was a kid, my hair was much redder than hers. Much redder than it is now, even. This is because red hair is a recessive gene. There are dominant and recessive genes, and it's easiest to describe this using a Punnett square. Let's look at this one, for example. Let's say that we're crossbreeding bananas, one green and one more commonly yellow. The green color is dominant and the yellow is recessive, which means that if the banana lies in one of the top 2 spots and it has the green trait, it will be dominant and you'll see green, even if it has the yellow gene, because yellow is recessive and green is dominant. However, as you can see, it is possible to have a green banana have a yellow banana offspring, even if the banana is green, because it also has the yellow gene. So even with the dominant gene, the green banana could have a yellow offspring. Even with another green banana, in fact. However, if this was the case, that new banana would have a 25% chance of being yellow if it has 2 green parents, each with the yellow gene. Like I said, it's a 1 in 4 chance, but it's still possible. This is the case with Elizabeth, where a parent doesn't necessarily have to have the trait visually, but rather in their DNA. I'm not the best at explaining this, but you get the idea. However, Elizabeth isn't ginger, she's blonde, which I don't understand where you got that from. But blonde is also a recessive trait, so the same thing applies. And we haven't seen the mother, or even really William Afton, so she could be blonde. Maybe she also has blue eyes, which is dominant over green, but it's still possible if she has the green-eyed trait, and William does too. And Elizabeth isn't ginger, okay? She's blonde. I honestly don't know where you got that from. What? Come on. Watch the cutscene. Penultimately, in number 2, force a crowd. I proposed the idea last time that perhaps William and his wife, or baby mama, but most likely wife at this point, had 4 kids instead of the 3 we see on screen. This was mostly based off the Immortal and the Restless TV series from Sister Location, where a woman was telling a character meant to represent William that he had a son that clearly was his, but William was denying it, or I guess Vlad was denying it, proposing that maybe he thought she had cheated or didn't want the kid. And after discussing genetics and trying to explain to the people who didn't really understand, it just shows how likely this scenario is. If the babies came out blonde, William might have just thought that they weren't his. But I think later that William realized that the baby was his and wanted her back, or perhaps I'm wrong about the whole he denied it originally thing, and instead he wanted her all along. But it wasn't 100% with me yet, it was still just a theory. Until this comment from YouTube user Saber Sapphire on the Last Tiny Details video. I think we can all agree that Ballora is an allegory for Mrs. Afton. She isn't possessed, because she would have had to be alive to run away with a child, but that after she left, William made this robot as a way to cope. We can also agree that she is a mother figure to the Minirinas, and that's what got us all thinking that she was meant to be the mother in the first place, aside from her song. Well, Saber pointed out the number of Minirinas that Ballora has: 4. Ballora has 4 children, and if she is meant to represent the mother of the Afton kids, this will only solidify this theory more for me. Finally, in number 1, motivation. While this number isn't based on this comment, a comment from user B Cooper helped spark this idea in my brain, along with the last comment. They said, I think the 4th child is Vanessa, and she was Elizabeth's twin. If there is actually a 4th Afton kid, and if Vanessa is that kid, it would make sense for her to have been Elizabeth's twin. She's the proper age, and they both are blonde with green eyes. We don't have many other features for Elizabeth because, you know, she was an 8-bit, but with the information we have, it matches, and it matches well. It could also be potential motivation for William. Maybe that's why Susie was first, because she looked like maybe the mother perhaps, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Maybe William has green eyes, or like I explained in number 3, they both have the gene, even if it's not visible. This could also be the inspiration behind Baby's mechanics and why the fun times are meant to capture children, so he could use them to find his other daughter. Hence why he told Elizabeth specifically to stay away from Baby, because he had programmed Baby to look for and capture a child that looked exactly like her because they were twins. He never told Crying Child or Michael to stay away from them, right? At least from what we saw, because they weren't in danger. This could be it. I am 100% certain at this point that the Aftons have 4 kids and that the mother ran away with the 4th. This has to be what's going on, right? It has to be what's going to be revealed in security breach, and 10 special delivery. Special delivery is a weird game, and while I do mean the gameplay aspects like collecting remnant, in this case I really mean in a timeline sense, since we know it takes place between Help Wanted and Security Breach, but what is the canonicity of this game? Are they actually trying to rebuild their image by sending out animatronics that were supposed to be friendly, or are they intentionally scaring people, and do the customers know if they're going to be scared, like a mail order killer service? Or do they expect an animatronic helper for around the house? And what is with sending out versions of the killer that ruined the reputation of the company in the first place? Like, is it a joke? Is it intentional? Do they know that was the housing for William after they thought he disappeared? Or is this all just fake? One of the games that we know within the universe. Are these animatronics really getting sent to your house, or are we as the player experiencing the same thing someone in universe would experience, like through their phone, an AR game? Like, what is actually going on in this game? And 9 hover hands. I don't think I've mentioned this before in this series, but I noticed something that most people seem to ignore while discussing the ending to FNAF VR. Most people assume that we swapped places with Glitch Trap, that he takes over our body in the final fight. But if when you get onto the stage after he swaps, you can see your hands and headset are missing if you look back to the desk you were at. Your holographic hands are nowhere to be seen. Yes, your controllers are controlling the Glitch Trap suit hands, but if you're really swapped, you would see holographic hands at that spot, most likely waving and taking off the headset. So why aren't they there? Because we don't swap places with Glitch Trap, we merge with him. I think that this is fairly common knowledge by now, but when MatPat first released this video and said Glitch Trap escapes this game through us, nobody seemed to notice that, and he in fact didn't. So there you go. You should have heard it here first, but you weren't subscribed, so don't worry, it's okay. Speaking of that, if you're enjoying the video, why don't you hit that like button? It really helps us out and lets us know what you want to see more of. And while you're doing it, just click subscribe. We're so close to 500,000 subscribers, and we know you love FNAFs, so we're still making FNAF. And it ain't fanfiction. We know there are plenty of FNAF fanfictions, probably too many if I'm honest. The ones we've talked about here are creepypastas, but I guess in a way it's sort of theories. However, have we ever stopped to consider any in-universe FNAF fanfiction? Or, well, at least I guess Freddy Fazbear fanfiction? Whether it be about the games that are in-universe or the characters themselves. Believe it or not, there is in fact Chuck E. Cheese fanfiction, so it is possible. But what would these fanfictions be? What about this Silver Eyes or Fazbear Frights? The novel isn't fully connected to the games, only sharing some similar aspects and characters, right? That's what fanfiction is. And Scott wasn't the only one who wrote these books. He had help. The Silver Eyes was also written by Kiara Breed Risley as well. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. If I did, I apologize. And Fazbear Frights had help from Ellie Cooper and Andrea Wagner. So technically, since they're not Scott Cawthon, it's just fanfiction that is considered canon. Huh. Gives you a lot to think about, huh? So go ahead, write your fan fiction. Just make sure that it isn't nasty. And don't ship dead kids with their killer or their dead sibling, okay? I can't believe that that's a thing. And it's 7 Glamrock Chica. While YouTuber Daka was doing a live stream for charity, when they would hit certain donation goals, they would unlock a new Security Breach teaser. One of the final ones was a picture of Glamrock Chica smashed in an alley or a junk lot of some kind, which first of all is very reminiscent of the scrapped animatronics from FNAF 6, but ignore that. There is one distinct detail that everyone noticed, but nobody seemed to really question further than why. And that detail being Chica is missing her beak. But not only did the same thing happen to Toy Chica in FNAF 2, but they also share the same body shape. Originally, Toy Chica lost her beak to make her scarier, and somehow Scott made it seem like it had bigger implications in the live stream from MatPat during the FNAF 4 days. Maybe it's because this was coming, or he wanted to make it seem bigger than it was. Or maybe Dream Theory was right for a time, but it isn't anymore. I don't know, I just figured it was an interesting detail that we should keep an eye on. Maybe how she loses her beak will be a big help in solving earlier problems. Or maybe there's something else in this image that I'm missing. I don't know. And at 6, Symmetry. FNAF VR has some interesting story elements that I'd like to point out to you. This was the basis for a personal theory I had a long time ago where I thought that in FNAF VR, we played as a man named Gabriel who was playtesting the game, since at the end we ended up getting stuffed into Freddy. However, there were other details that drove me to this conclusion, like for example, the fact that Glitch Trap causes Jeremy, a name that we know all too well in this series, to cut his face off. And then Bonnie shows up in the final room in the Pizza Party minigame, missing his face. And that Chica starts off without her arm in the parts and service minigame and shows up without the same arm in the final room as well. However, symmetry like this is everywhere in the FNAF series as a whole and not just in this game. Like how William would stuff his victims into the suits and then got stuck in one himself, etc. It's interesting and something I'm sure we'll see more of, so keep your eye out. Halfway through into number 5, history. Is FNAF history repeating itself? It's an interesting question that we should probably discuss since it seems like it might be. This idea started when I thought about how both dummy-thick versions of Chica lose their beaks, and it escalated from there. Because it seems like William is taking the lives of his original victims again, well, at least by name. Granted, we don't know Tape Girl's name, and it could be Vanny, and we don't know who our character plays in we don't know who our character's name is in FNAF VR, and that could also be Vanny, but technically Vanessa, you know what I mean. Because as Glitchtrap, William has already taken the life of Jeremy, someone we know to be the one who possessed Bonnie based on the FNAF 3 ending, as well as the gravestone screen from FNAF 6. He made Jeremy cut his face off, like how Bonnie at the end of the Pizza Party minigame in the final room is missing his face. We don't know what became of Tape Girl, but she could very well be represented by Chica as well. Someone we thought was okay, but then turned out to be incomplete, ergo the missing arm. Not in possession of all her marbles, should I say, as the final tape seems to indicate. It's interesting, and maybe Gregory in Security Breach will end up being the next crying child. But hopefully not Napkin Kid, because Christ, would that be annoying. In it for fake. Much like any YouTube video prank, what if everything in this world is fake? The story, the death, the in-universe minigames, the animatronics and special delivery, help wanted. What if it was all fake and just meant to be a massive marketing stunt that went entirely wrong? Or hell, maybe it went horribly right. If Freddy Fazbear's was dying, much like how Chuck E. Cheese was failing, could it possibly be that Fredbear's was too? And in an effort to keep the business alive, William and Henry created a marketing scheme that would get them some publicity and even bring in some more customers that were fans of horror. I mean, it would explain why William was never convicted and why the investigation was so flawed. They didn't actually check the suits because there was, in reality, no bodies inside them. They never leaked blood or mucus or smelled terrible. Why would anyone go if they did? Or stick around when they saw it, or hell, even smelt it? It also explains how, even through all this horror, they were able to expand, eventually opening an entire mall that they called a Pizzaplex. Oh man, am I onto something here? And in 3, Gotchaverse. Unfortunately, in the FNAF canon, there are now multiple timelines and multiple dimensions thanks to the confirmation of the Fazbear Fanverse initiative. However, that basically means any fan fiction about FNAF is true in one form or another, and any theory about FNAF is correct in one universe, which unfortunately means that there is an entire canon version of the FNAF Gotcha fandom. Don't get me wrong, it's cringy and it really shouldn't exist, but technically it's canon in another Earth. I don't know what to do with this information. It just kind of makes me sad, honestly. And to Oswald. It may have come across as a joke when I said it in the last part, and how I mentioned that FNAF has its own Barry Allen that's going around messing up the timeline. But you know what? It wasn't. Not anymore, at least. Scott has stated before that the Fazbear Frights books are meant to help us solve bits of confusion in the main FNAF canon, like how William was able to survive being spring-locked and whatnot. But I believe that Scott has given us the biggest answer already in the very first story of the series. Into the Pit is the title of the first story and the first Fazbear Frights book, and is centered around Oswald, a kid who loves to draw but has recently been focusing on furry animals with robots inside. Eventually, he finds a ball pit that sends him through time into the past, where eventually he sees 6 murders and flees back to his time. But he does survive until the end of the story, which is kind of rare for these Fazbear Frights books. I think that it was on purpose. There are a lot of things that contradict themselves in this story, with statements from different characters changing the timeline and making it so damn difficult to navigate. Plus, now we have multiple dimensions to think about with the Fazbear Fanverse initiative and the book series worlds. But what if the reason the timeline is so clunky is because Oswald is changing it? There isn't much of a connection to the games for these first couple stories, but looking at it like this has it make a lot more sense and explains all the changes. It's like Flashpoint. Barry knew what was different because he was outside of the timeline change. We're outside this timeline too, and that's why we see the mistakes. This genuinely seems like the only explanation to me. I mean, I know it's highly unlikely, but I mean, what other explanation could there be? Finally, in at number 1, skins. FNAF AR doesn't only have a confusing story, it also has confusing mechanics. Like, for example, if everything is supposed to be real, where are all these skins coming from? And how is it possible? And to that, I think I have a solution. If these skins are meant to be real, because why wouldn't they be? If we can see them, they must be real, right? I think that there is a simple explanation that solves this issue that I've been having for a while. The illusion discs from the Twisted Ones novel that we also see in Sister Location. These, as we know, can easily manipulate the appearance of anything nearby, at least in the minds of individuals close enough to the discs themselves. And this is the most likely scenario to explain how we can change the skins of these animatronics basically at will. It just sets the disc to emit the proper sound, or however it changes the looks of these things. Right frequency, I guess? Which is honestly kinda cool. It would also be cool if we had this in real life so I could change my appearance whenever I wanted, but like just my clothing. You don't want to get rid of the moneymaker right here. Imagine just like changing skins at will like you can in Minecraft or Fortnite. Like it would be fun, but like it would just be clothes. So you can just be like, aha, I'm wearing a banana. Aha, I'm a burrito. Aha, I'm a glizzy gobbler. And a 10 grandfather clock. One of the biggest pieces of evidence for dream theory was the grandfather clock sound at the end of your shifts in FNAF 1, 2, and 3. Since why would you hear a grandfather clock in an office? Which makes sense. But thanks to Nightmare Freddy's April Fool's Day mechanics, we know that dream theory is false. So why are we hearing a grandfather clock? I mean, there very well could be one in the office. Like, it's not impossible, it's just highly unlikely. But it could also just be that we changed the alarm tone on our phone and we have an alarm set for 6 a.m. so we know the minute that we can get off the job. I can understand that, especially given the horrific environment this job places us in. And no, I'm not talking about the internet, I'm talking about the job in-game, although it does work for both of us. And at 9, Bonnie goes missing. Aside from being a great name for a children's book, I'm claiming privileges, Scott, that doesn't really help the fact that after Sister Location, Bonnie just kind of vanished, not including FNAF VR, AR, or Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night since it's a dream, FNAF VR because it's just all the games, and AR since it's not really a game, it's a service, at least in universe. And Bonnie isn't in the main lineup for Security Breach, and instead has a bowling alley with no known appearances otherwise. So what happened? When Chica was left out of Sister Location, we got Chica's Party World as an excuse, but does Bonnie have the same sort of thing going? Did they swap between the events of Sister Location and Security Breach? Like, what on earth is the deal here? Where did Bonnie go? And why did they make the games? We still don't know what games are the ones created by the Scott Cawthon stand-in in the FNAF universe, but we also still don't really know why either. We hear that he made them on his own to capitalize on the tragedies, which makes sense, but then we also have Tape Girl who tells us that Fazbear Entertainment hired this guy to make the games so that people wouldn't be so apprehensive about returning to their restaurants. That had to have been the way things went, because even we as fans of the series want a real-life Freddy Fazbear's, so I'm sure that in-universe these games have the same effect, whatever the games may be, which would also explain how they were able to expand, which is why that makes more sense than Scott doing it on his own, at least Scott's in-universe counterpart. Why did you have to do this though, Scott? Like, why must you torture me? I mean, it's incredible, and it's great storytelling, but why? And it's 7 layout. Thank you to YouTube user Octoling for the comments on part 9 pointing this one out. In their comment, they pointed out that FNAF 4 and FNAF 2 have very similar layouts, with 2 entrances on the left and right, with a big one in the center. These being the 2 side vents in FNAF 2, and the doors to the hallways in FNAF 4, and the big door in FNAF 2 being the big closet in FNAF 4. Now, if this is because the base coding is the same, at least for the office section, or if it's for another reason is unknown, but it's a tiny detail that you don't really think about. So, belongs on this list. Does it have bigger lore implications? Maybe, but unlikely. I genuinely think that it's because the code is so similar that he might have just copied and pasted with different textures, and instead of lights that we can activate, we end up running to the doors. But either way, it's something to chew on. And it's 6 eyes. We all know that Freddy starts moving closer to the end of the original game, and as I've said before, he wasn't really originally meant to move. However, on the cameras, you still don't really see him. It won't be obvious like it is for Bonnie or Chica, but instead you'll see 2 white dots as his eyes. But like, how is this possible? When he does show up at our door, we can see that he has normal animatronic eyes in his sockets like Bonnie and Chica do, so how are there only 2 dots that are really able to be seen? Especially when they're being blocked and no other animatronics do this kind of thing. It's so weird, and I just don't think that it has any bigger implications, but I still want to know why these white dots come from behind the eyes. Are they that bright? Because those eyes are meant to disperse the light that would normally come from the LEDs, if there are any LEDs behind the eyes, so it's strange in my opinion, and I'll never really be satisfied with the answer, so I'll just move on. Halfway through into number 5, Nightmare Mangle. From what I understand with the Nightmare animatronics, a few got added in a Halloween DLC, but only Nightmare Balloon Boy was canon. I may be wrong about this, and it has been a while since I saw that, but to my understanding, Nightmare Mangle was not canon. We determined this had to be because Crying Child hadn't seen Puppet or Mangle yet, but had seen Balloon Boy. However, we know for a fact that Crying Child has seen Mangle. He appears in his sister's room as a torn up plushie next to her bed. There is no stuffing by her bed, which is ironic given the series, but it's still kind of weird that Mangle wasn't deemed canon if it was there. Shout out to Avery Truesdale for spotting this and putting it in the comments of part 9. So if Crying Child does know what Mangle looks like, how is that not canon? Scott went out of his way to say that Balloon Boy was canon, meaning the others had to not be canon, right? I'm so damn confused. I can't do this anymore. No, I'm only halfway through. And at 4, FNAF IRL. I've made multiple videos about how a real-life Freddy Fazbear's could exist, and may even be coming as early as 2023. But as I was writing this script, I thought, what if we were getting a real-life FNAF crossover? Now, this might be a little outlandish, but bear with me here. We're hoping to get a real-life FNAF in 2023, since that's when Fazbear Frights opens in universe. But it was all speculation and the power of positive thinking. No actual evidence, and Scott even said himself that he wouldn't do it. But are we being set up to think that it's not going to happen, and instead getting one of the most ambitious crossovers of all time? Well, the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative may hold some clues. This is a group of fan game creators that Scott has funded to help make another game, Five Nights at Candy's 4 being the most popular in this group. But this collection of fan games also contains a new version of the Joy of Creation, the Ignited Collection, where if you're not familiar, you play as Scott Cawthon himself being chased by ignited versions of the original animatronics, basically more withered versions. And since the FNAF multiverse is now a thing thanks to these games and the books, could Scott make this into one of those universes and use that game as a bridge between worlds? It would kind of make sense, but it would also be absolutely terrifying. And at 3, Chris Afton. There are a lot of names for Crying Child, and I'm here to set the record straight. None of them have been confirmed. Crying Child isn't even a canonical name. I'm pretty sure it's just another name for the character because he was always crying, or was mostly crying. It's just another name that we gave him. The names I've been seeing recently are Chris, Norman, Evan, and Kyle, and I don't know where most of these came from. Evan comes from the security logbook, and most people seem to think that this is canon, but it's not. They've also had to really struggle to get the N as far as I could tell, so if you want to believe that, currently their name is Eve. Chris is random, and I'm pretty sure came from a FNAF-themed music video. Same thing with that car accident that apparently killed the mother. They're not actually canon. Norman isn't anywhere to be found either, and the same thing with Kyle, because I made that one up. But I'm certain that there will be at least one person who, when I said that, yelled, "Finally!" or something along those lines. Crying Child does not have a name. It's not a tiny detail, but it's something that a lot of people don't really think about. So if you have a detail but put it in the comments with a name that isn't confirmed, it could be about anyone, so I really tend to scroll past those, but I had to set the record straight, okay? No canon name for Crying Child. If you want to call him whatever, it's fine, but don't use it as evidence or say that it's confirmed or canon, because it's not. However, if they have solidly found evidence for all of the letters of Evan, please send the link to me on Instagram so I can start looking around, so I can actually see that. But until that point, it's not confirmed. It's even not confirmed after I see it. It's not like I'm the one confirming it, but you know what I mean. And at 2, passive mode. Shout out to Robert Vasvensky for posting this in the comments of part 9 as well. This really helped me. Why is it that out of the 2 shadow animatronics in FNAF 2, there's one that's passive and one that's aggressive? And why is Bonnie the aggressive one? Shadow Freddy's just chilling, slumped over, not really moving. But Shadow Bonnie will just come in and absolutely torment the hell out of you by flicking flickering your lights and just overall being a tool. But why does this theme remain even after this game, with Shadow Bonnie being aggressive in FNAF AR as well? Is it just the spirits creating these figures that have different personalities, or is it a different emotion that created these A to begin with, or B, making one more aggressive than the other? I don't know, but it's hella interesting. Because like, if agony caused Shadow Bonnie, but a different emotion caused Shadow Freddy, it would explain why Shadow Freddy is passive. Finally, in at number 1, Oblivious. In a previous video, multiple videos in fact, I've said that the company doesn't care because they're sending and replicating the suit of the dude who caused them to have a bad rap in the first place in FNAF Special Delivery. They're replicating Springtrap and they're just sending him on his way, going like, yeah, go kill more kids. However, a commenter pointed out to me that when discussing Springtrap in the AR emails, they referred to Springtrap as an older Bonnie model, which I find confusing because, well, how do you know it's an older Bonnie model, but then you call it Springtrap in the app? I know that it's because we know him as Springtrap and that's like our universe reason, but assuming we were in the FNAF universe, we would be using the app that at least looks similar to the one that we use, if not the exact same, minus the whole animatronic fight sequences, because those would be happening in real life. And if Springtrap is listed as Springtrap and not older Bonnie, Fazbear Entertainment needs to explain. Fazbear, explain! What do you mean it's Arkansas? But also, why would you not recall the animatronics and just go get them? Or have somewhere people can deposit them? Or company-wide shutdown switch? You should have thought of that by now, especially after how many things have gone wrong.